Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another Japanese deep dive into some exciting Radiance releases for Shinobi, which recently just had the second volume, the next three movies in the epic saga franchise that is this ninja, early Japanese 60s kind of movies. And I figured it is time to start watching these films. I've had this previous edition last year when all the chaos was going on in the house. I never got around to watching those films for obvious reasons. I got more into the Hong Kong cinema side and going through some of the backlog into some of the Shaw Brothers stuff. So now I'm going to go the other way. It's apparent to me this year's been more focused on a lot of Japanese content because there's been some really fantastic films that have never had full HD transfers and never had releases outside of Japan. I've never heard about a lot of these films, and we get a lot of variety from Radiance, Arrow Video, 88 Films, just some really fantastic kind of labels, and it's an absolute blast watching these films for the very first time alongside with many other people in the same boat. Maybe some people have watched it on the VHS or those old VCD kind of DVDs that were back in the day, and it's really interesting to see the community kind of really react to these films and kind of exploring new directors, new stars, and new films that I've never had access to or never heard of before. And with the Shinobi films, I have heard about these for quite some time, thanks to maybe people in the community, from the Hong Kong community, and people that also do follow Japanese films. And all I know about these films is that they are 60s films, Japanese films. They feature ninjas, which I haven't seen many ninja films, if I'm being absolutely honest. There's been ninjas featured in films, like the Lone Wolf and Cub movies and a couple of the Shaw Brothers films, but I've never seen films dedicated to ninjas and their placement within that kind of culture, that time frame, the craft. And it's really interesting because on the Street Fighter films that I watched quite some time ago, which I haven't got around to reviewing, I might do at some point if you guys are interested in that. With Sonny Chiba, one of the extras of Shell Factory, he talks about this idea of his style of fighting versus what the ninja side is. And
忍者と一緒なんですね。忍者っていうのは卑怯な手しか使いませんから。で、そういう一撃必殺で相手を倒すときには急所しかない。目をつく、鼻をつく、耳を口の中に指を突っ込む。で、こういう急所ってここは急所なんですね。ここは狙っちゃいけないんですよね。でもそういう
how disgraceful and dishonorable it is, and this film also dives into those kind of themes as well, which I'll get into. But I've heard these are very, very good films, obviously 9 movies in total, and I have access to the 6. So I will be diving into all these films and seeing if I can track down the others alongside it. So very exciting to kind of watch these. I might do these all in one go. I might do this sporadically, see how this series kind of grabs me or doesn't grab me, depending on the film's quality. I'm surprised there are 9 of these films. That does really surprise me, but I'm looking forward to checking out and diving into this series for the very first time. Before I dive into the film itself, let's check out the edition for the first box set that came out. You do get the first 3 movies there, and it is this limited edition, nice hardboard box, and you get the individual releases with some alternative artwork covers, which is really cool. You do get alternative artwork inside as well, which has more information about the extras and the runtimes and that kind of stuff. So just depending on what you're after, and you do get a really cool booklet as well inside. You can get this edition now as a part of a regular edition, like just basically one of these standard kind of Blu-rays with all the discs inside, with no booklet, I don't believe, and it's just a very standard edition because this is out of print. But you can find this for around, CX, eBay. Have a look around if you do want to get this edition. I do think it looks really snazzy. I like the colour scheme quite a lot. Very similar to the second one that recently just came out about a week or so ago. Shinobi, released in 1962, also called the Band of Assassins, as the first title is called, Shinobi Band of Assassins. Directed by Satomu Yotomoto, which I hope I'm saying it correctly. I'm very terrible with pronunciations. He directed the first 2 entries of this series, which is quite surprising. So he did the first 2 movies, starring Raizô Ichikawa, which is the main star of this film, which is a big star during the time of the early 60s period of Japanese films. He was also involved in The Sleepy Eyes of Death, has been involved in the upcoming The Betrayal, which is another Radiance release coming out soon, and been involved in quite a few films from his really fantastic career during the 60s onwards. I know my friend Fanatical Dragon is a big fan of these films and The Sleepy Eyes of Death, and I hope those films do get a really good edition. Possibly Radiance could be the next one after this franchise. Now, the film itself, Shinobi Band of Assassins, was a very different film going in than expected. I didn't have much preconception. It's quite a complex story. It is quite convoluted in some degree, which I can understand some people maybe bouncing out this film, maybe if you went in the wrong expectations, or if you're not in the mood for this type of film, because it is quite a demanding film in terms of your attention. You have to be locked in, invested in what's going on, and I think it is the film's job to kind of get you interested, to see what's happening, to see what the political intrigue is, to see where these characters do lie in terms of our villain characters, our hero characters, supporting characters, the internal drama, the code of being a ninja kind of persona. And it goes through a lot of kind of different kind of avenues throughout this kind of hour and 40-odd minute film. It demands a lot from you in terms of an audience member. And I think if you're locked in, as mentioned within that first 20 minutes or so, I think the rest of the film will be quite smooth sailing. There is a lot going on, and I can understand some of the people bouncing out of this film. To try and explain it, to try and boil it down to a simple kind of plot, in a sense of my own understanding of it, without giving away too many spoilers. I don't want to ruin any kind of major reveals in the film, because there is quite an interesting kind of reveal. I would say less of a twist, but more of a reveal that is very interesting and very cool, and I wasn't expecting it, and I think it really adds something to the kind of the myth of being a ninja and internal kind of conflict, but also the external kind of conflict as well between the ninja kind of clans and the samurai, which, as we all know, the samurai is the noble kind of esteemed kind of warriors essentially of the Japanese kind of empire, which are learning the new wave of kind of warcraft, of muskets and kind of weaponry work, rifle-based work. And you've got a kind of a villainous type character, which is a villain for sure in the film, but not necessarily the villain overall for our main character, which is interesting. He's just another pawn. He is someone who's taken up a lot of territory. This is demonstrated within the style of the film, and basically going from place to place, killing a lot of people. So essentially he's a villain, killing kids and females and other males, and just really kind of destroying anyone that comes in his way and torturing people, and just not a nice person, but hey, he has a cat, which is pretty funny. But played by the lone wolf and cub actor as well, which is really cool. So it adds a little kind of extra layer to that kind of performance. There's a really good actor playing him and kind of demonstrating and showing what the samurai kind of status was for during the 1506, which the film takes place in terms of building up territories. And you've got the ninja side of it, which is interesting because I've not seen many films tackle ninjas apart from a more fun, campier, sillier way in the later movies within Hong Kong or other Japanese films. And this idea, and one of the themes of the film, is exploring this idea of what it truly means to be a ninja and how of a pointless existence. What is the point of it? Why train yourself up? Why go for the ranks to be a tool, to be a puppet? Because they got this idea of the ninja code. You can't announce your name. Even if you get captured, you have to endure unbelievable torture and even sacrifice your own life to kind of get the target to assassinate. And it's a very kind of dangerous, kind of lonely existence. And constantly people throughout the film is telling our main character, don't let this woman steal your heart and your soul, because you're not that, essentially. To be a ninja is essentially being dishonest, to be kind of, a shadow, to be a kind of a nobody, essentially. You're a tool to get something done, essentially. And one of the really cool scenes in the film, which I really liked, was you've got from the opposite side of the clan, as mentioned, you've got the two different clans in the film, this Ninjaga kind of clans, not too far away from each other, run by two different kind of people, which is interesting. I'll leave that to the film. And essentially you've got the same kind of ninja code, but run very differently in terms of the people occupying it, and there is some kind of cross path in between. Essentially the sort of rivals, but they have the same kind of ninja kind of code. And you got this idea of I'm going to send you off, the male ninja, to do a job, to assassinate, but you are a woman. You've got the same skill set as a ninja, but you are not a ninja, you are a woman. So you must do what your kind of partner says, and you must do, you must not feel any womanly shames, or you must do what is needed to get the job done, essentially. And that is interesting to see the hierarchy in the film, this idea of males are obviously dominant, which happens a lot within this kind of time frame of Japanese films anyway. Most of the women portrayals in this film is through prostitution or the love interest, or basically kind of being forgotten about, or pawns in a bigger kind of deceiving kind of web, which is interesting, which I'll get into. But the women's placement in the film is quite interesting, and how it's used, and in terms of the bigger story. But I like this idea of, you can be a woman, you can be a part of that kind of ninja clan, you can have all the skill set of a ninja, but you cannot be a ninja necessarily. But I like the fact early on in the film, and which is why I say it's definitely a film you need to be invested in and to lock into. And I think if the first 20 minutes fails that for you, the film's not going to work. The film very early on starts what being a ninja is, what the circumstances is, and essentially I like the fact that our main character Goman, which is a upcoming kind of pupil, someone who is very kind of eager to be a ninja and very excited to work closely with the general, and upcoming talent, essentially the next in line, sees as a promotion to see him going above the general and seeing him running the whole gig, essentially, I guess. His father is very skeptical, who basically does gunpowder on the side. He's kind of experimenting with that kind of stuff. And even says, like, the existence of being a ninja is basically to be no one. It is a very pointless, what is the purpose of being this kind of person, essentially? You've got this skill set, you've got this kind of, the traditional kind of look and the gadgetry type stuff. Not necessarily gadgetry, but weaponry-based work, sneakier weapons, poisons, kind of very small blunted kind of, knives and object work, and very dishonorable, very less about facing your kind of opponent head on, but doing it in a very devious, sneaky kind of way of assassination work, essentially. And this idea of that our main character, as the film goes on, which I'll get into, has to become a thief, and that's also very dishonorable. You're stealing money for the cause, for the war chest. It's quite interesting, and I like how the film explores the political aspect, not just within the samurai side and what's going on with that within the film, but also what it truly means to be a ninja. And I like this idea of the ninja versus samurai kind of idea, kind of war going on within the film, and what kind of people choose to get into that kind of work. I was pleasantly surprised what this film had to offer, and I think it's very apparent very quickly what the tone is, what it's going for, and what it delivers. And I think if you're on board with that within the first 20 minutes, I'd say this is an hour and 40-odd minute film, then you're going to have a really good time with it. If you're thinking this is going to be a really fun ninja film, and it's going to be a blast, or a ninja kind of gadgetry and that kind of stuff, maybe the bounty hunter movies might be a bit more. The bounty hunter films from Radiance also came out a little while ago. That has a bit more of that kind of James Bond kind of, Clint Eastwood kind of vibe, and some of the more Lone Wolf and Cub movies, which maybe I was thinking it could be leaning towards all that kind of stuff. They're the more kind of fun movies in a sense. This is a lot much more of a darker, serious one. I don't know what the sequels will go into later on, but I'm very looking forward to going on that journey with it. And the film essentially is this very kind of dark, gritty kind of conspiracy thriller, very political. It has a lot of kind of manipulation and kind of, treachery and kind of, guiding people into certain things. There's a very dangerous game being played. And our main character, Goman, basically gets screwed over massively in this film, going from a upcoming kind of a pupil, someone who's been hand-selected by the general, to basically do the kind of the taxes or the kind of the incomes, the kind of the more counting side of it, is being basically placed in a kind of a honey trap. Massive manipulation, playing a very dangerous game. There is a bigger work going on with this character and how both clans want him for various different means. And I like the fact they show constantly from the film them sending off various kind of ninja assassins to take out this samurai kind of character, and all failing or being captured, or leading to suicide, leading to death, leading to kind of various kind of different ways of kind of humiliation, essentially. And it's very interesting how that's kind of portrayed, and it kind of deepens the kind of the themes and the ideas of the film of, again, what it means to truly be a ninja. Are you willing to commit suicide? Are you willing to give up your name? Are you willing to dishonor your code, your ethics, your name, disgrace your name even, kind of thing? Are you willing to sacrifice love or your passions? Are you willing to fully commit yourself, soul, body, and your life, essentially, to a cause that isn't yours, compared to a samurai? How he deals with that, I think, is really interesting to see. And I think, again, to the film's credit and to the strength of the film, if that fails, if you're not invested in this character and his journey, the film falls apart. And despite all this kind of really intriguing kind of villainry work kind of going on, the political aspect and the locations, essentially you got our main character, which is the audience going into this kind of world essentially. And, you know, I like his skill sets. I wouldn't say the fighting is particularly that amazing, but that's fine. I don't mind it. So I'm quite impressed. We got some ninja kind of based kind of material. There's some brief moments of samurai kind of fights as well. So I wasn't expecting an action film, but what we did get in the film was quite good and quite interesting. And I like how information is revealed bit by bit to our main character, and essentially open-ended in a way. There's not everything's been kind of resolved, you know, by that, but the main kind of core drama, the tension, the kind of the villainry kind of work going on is resolved. It's sort of wrapped up in the film, but there is this kind of bigger kind of world, this bigger political kind of aspect that is just constantly going on, this war aspect that is going on in the background. But our main character is in a interesting place by the end of the film, which without going into too much detail. So overall, the film itself, Band of Assassins, I thought was a really strong first entry into this world of kind of ninjas and political kind of intrigue and kind of the dangerous kind of game between kind of betrayal and lust and kind of playing each other and turning kind of good people into criminals. And the supporting cast I thought fantastic. I thought the film was really well paced. I thought it was really intriguing, very interesting. I think it has some good brief moments of slight kind of combat action in terms of the ninja stuff and the samurai stuff. I think it's surprisingly quite violent for what the film is. It is a 15 rated, but it is very violent for what the film is. The locations I thought were fantastic and gorgeous. Speaking of the HD quality for the Blu-ray, I thought was really fantastic as well in terms of a black and white film. Just something about that kind of black and white kind of, you know, inky kind of color films that just really pop on a HD format, and I think it looks absolutely terrific. And I think Radiance did a really great job of really bringing that to life in terms of a black and white film. And I could just see those details, even though there's no color, I could just feel it and see it. And there's a lot of work put into this film, which I think is really a testament to the director. And so what are your thoughts and opinions on this film? What are your thoughts on the sequel entries? Do they get better? Do they get worse? What is your favorite movie in this kind of franchise? I'd love to know your thoughts and impressions. Please comment down below. So in time, guys, Amphlett Reviews. So yeah.